Welcome everybody to the CODEC Show, episode number 15. We are here on the beautiful campus of the College of DuPage. This is October 19th? October 19th, this fall semester is flying by. We are in week 9. Wow, that's kind of fast. I am Professor Peter James, Business and Entrepreneurship Professor here on campus, and welcome once again to the College of DuPage Entrepreneurship Club. We here at the College of DuPage, our goal is to expose students and local community members to entrepreneurs and small business owners. By them sharing their story, we'll show how entrepreneurship is definitely an option when your education is complete. And of course, COD here on campus, the Entrepreneurship Club is bringing entrepreneurs to students as well as to you, the viewers. So I always like to start out with a round of applause for you guys here. Those of you here in the studio audience, this is such a great studio, isn't it? Thank you for coming. I truly appreciate it. This is our CODEC Club. We usually do this on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month during the semester. We did it back-to-back weeks this month because of a few scheduling conflicts. So again, thank you for coming. We have a little bit of a break after this session, so it's going to be like 3 weeks before our next meeting, but we got some great stuff planned for November, so please stay tuned because we're giving away gifts. Ooh. Saying if you guys like gifts. So the club has definitely evolved over the last few years. We have a logo, we got food, we got great officers as well, new students, new leadership. So again, thank you for coming. And those of you who are watching, thank you for watching as well. So without further ado, I'd like to jump right in. We have a special guest today. His name is Greg Seiler. Greg, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. So Greg, welcome to College of DuPage, first and foremost. You have a special connection here.
I do, yeah.
Tell us about it.
I have a son, Adam, who goes to school here.
So Adam, can you say hello to everybody in the room? Hello. And a little louder for people who are watching us.
What's up, guys?
They can't really see you, so don't worry about that. But they can hear you, though. Just saying as well.
And by the way, I would do this even if you didn't go to school there.
So yes, you do definitely have a special connection. So thank you so much for coming, first and foremost. So I'd like to dive right in a little bit. Tell us about, first of all, who you are, maybe a little bit of background, and a little bit about your business to start off, and then I got some questions for you as well.
Yeah, sure. That's a big question to start out. Again, my name is Greg Seiler. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Influencer Interactive. So for all you folks that are maybe new to digital marketing, the newest craze in digital marketing is really built around influencers, utilizing influencers to push products and services. So essentially that's what our company does. We've been in business for a little over a year, and my team is built here in the Midwest as well as really all throughout the United States. I have folks that work for us in different parts of the country. My head of tech ops, for instance, is out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have somebody who runs sales for me in Scottsdale, Arizona. So, along with owning a company and being an entrepreneur, we also have an organization that relies on telecommuting to get the job done. But, I didn't fall out of bed yesterday and decide I wanted to own a digital marketing company. There was a lot of steps that took place for me to get here. Actually, about 20 years worth of steps, all built here in Chicago. I started out with a company called Classified Ventures here in Chicago. You probably never heard of it. You probably heard of a couple of their main businesses, which is cars.com and apartments.com. So when I started out, when I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug in digital marketing, was really at Classified Ventures. And I didn't own the company, I wasn't the CEO, but I was a part of something very special and very early stage. We were building something. We were building a company, and we were building a company that had some staying power. Now back at that day, it was almost 20 years ago. So some of you folks in this room may not even be 20 years old, but that's about when the internet really started to get going. We had no idea what we were doing. We all just knew that we were hungry and we wanted to build something cool, and we did that. So that really kind of set the pathway for me on my career path into digital marketing. I saw something that was cool. It was neat. It was cutting edge. You learned something new every day. But you could also take kind of your basic business principles and wrap them around kind of this cool entrepreneurial feeling company and really do some good. So that was really my first foray into digital marketing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So after college, Did you go to San Francisco to tech
Yeah,
to have to do this, or did you do that all here?
No, we were a Chicago-based company. That's a great question. Yeah. Throughout my career, I've had opportunities to move to both coasts, San Francisco and LA out on the West Coast, and then New York on the East Coast to run companies or run large portions of companies. But really, family and roots kept us here, and really kind of this growing entrepreneurial spirit here in Chicago. I mean, there's a lot of great things happening with incubators like 1871 downtown, which you may or may not heard of. A lot of great stuff happening here in Chicago, and I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be one of those guys that could be a go-to that young people could call and ask advice from and things like that. So great question. I fought off the urge, and a large part of it was family too.
So that's kind of interesting. So you mentioned that Chicago is a booming tech scene, and especially from the digital side of it. Some of us don't believe that everything we hear in the media is always out of San Francisco or New York City, like you said. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a sneak peek to what's going on in Chicago, some of the companies, some of the things, maybe even in the city or out here in the suburbs?
Yeah, absolutely. So downtown, there's again, a tech incubator called 1871. So for you folks who are in the tech space, the digital ad tech space, you've probably heard of it by now. But it literally takes a whole floor in the merchandise mart. So if you go downtown, you get on the river and you see that big old building on the left-hand side, that's the merchandise mart. It literally has more square footage of any one building on any floor than any building in the country. So 1871 now has one whole solid floor that they have dedicated. So 1871 is essentially what we call an incubator. So it's made up of a couple things. The first thing is a bunch of really hungry young entrepreneurs who want to get things going. The second part of it is made up of people who have built businesses, either financially or through know-how, that are there and willing to help these young entrepreneurs build their businesses. So 1871 is really put Chicago on the map in about 6 short years. I was fortunate enough to work for quite a while under one of the founders, a guy named Matt Moog, who's, oddly enough, his dad invented the music synthesizer. So you've heard of the Korg synthesizers now. His was the MOOG. So if you look up old rock and roll pictures, that was his dad. So you can tell what kind of entrepreneurial spirit he had. So he helped build this 1871, and again, now it's really the launching pad for a lot of things tech, certainly in the city, and then there's some great things happening here in the area, especially in DuPage County. There's like-minded incubators. So again, back to this incubator concept, which is really a great idea for entrepreneurs. If you don't have the money, you have a great idea, hook yourself up with an incubator, because again, they're chock full of people that can help you, that have tech expertise and experience, that have financial expertise and experience and backing. There's lawyers that actually have offices in these things, and they will trade off their services typically for equity in your company. So it's not like you have to come in and say, hey, I need the best lawyer in town, but I don't have $10,000 to lay out for great advice. These guys and gals will give you advice potentially for a little sliver of your company moving forward. So it's a win-win. It's an absolute win-win for everybody.
And for those of you who are here in the audience, are interested in 1871 and finding out some more information, actually the officers here and myself are probably going to take a little quote-unquote field trip one Friday down to 1871 in the River North area and to see what's really going on there. But to Greg's credit, lots of stuff is going on there for new business, for entrepreneurs, and it's really kind of exciting. It's also a sneak peek of that. It's moving out here to the suburbs a little bit too, so we'll talk more about that next month in another show for sure. But let's go back to your business now. So thank you for sharing about Chicago, because I'm also really excited about what's going on in Chicago and the scene. But tell us about Influencer Interactive.
Sure.
And what's and like who your target market is and how you gain business. Tell us a little bit, because we have some marketers here in the audience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I kind of started in the digital marketing arena about 20 years ago, and have worked for other larger companies, some which you haven't heard of, but you've probably heard of a lot of the advertisers I've worked with. So after Classified Ventures, I went to a company called Q Interactive, and we did a lot of digital couponing, for instance. So dealing with a whole nother set of technology, answering other goals for advertisers. So Some of the advertisers we work with, they're wide and varied, but a lot of names you'd see around your breakfast table. Unilever, Procter & Gamble. Man, there's a whole host of them. We work with travel companies. Disney is a big client of ours. So we do a lot of work with Disney, finding families that want to plan the perfect vacation, all the way down to those little stick figures you see in the back of the moms who drive the minivans. That's us. We help them with that stuff. So we help them find, again, typically moms in that case who say, yeah, I'm interested in a Disney vacation, and yeah, send those stick figures over to me too. So again, a lot of what we call consumer packaged goods, which is stuff you could find in your pantry, cleaning supplies, things like that. Travel companies, one of our newest clients is actually in the politics and advocacy area, cool. Which is kind of an interesting business. It's a slippery slope, and you really have to be careful there, but there's good money. But we probably turn away more business than we take. Again, I've worked for larger companies where we had to be all things to all people. We were publicly traded, so the bottom line meant everything, right? So you couldn't afford to turn away business. You literally had to take just about everything and figure out a way to make it work. That gets old after a while. So I really wanted to work for companies that weren't publicly traded, that were a little bit smaller, where I could build teams that we could do what we wanted to do. We had smart people working for us that had very specialized talents that we could bring to bear for our clients, rather than walk in the client and spew out everything that I thought I could do from them, from search marketing to banners to influencers. Now we're very specialized in banner and sponsorship, utilizing influencers, and we work with very kind of specialized advertisers. But again, most of the advertisers are probably folks I would imagine you've heard of.
Okay, so and for those of you who are here in the audience, definitely as you think of questions to ask, please don't hesitate, raise your hand. Make sure you speak up so they can hear you behind the camera. Also, I have a question, especially what you mentioned a little while ago. So is your target market these advertisers, these companies, these large companies, or you mentioned political advocacy? Are you having individual politicians, or is it more of the broader company setting that they want to advertise and use digital to be able to do so?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I really feel like I have two sets of clients. I have my advertising clients that pay the bills, and I have my audiences. My audiences, by the way, are probably just as important, if not more important, than the folks that are paying the bills, because without the audiences, I can't pay the bills, right? So a big part of what we do is utilize technology to go out and find the right audience for these advertisers, right? I mean, what you see on TV is pretty simple stuff, right? Or you might see a banner or a billboard on the side of the road. What we do is we utilize technology to find specific individuals that might have specific interests. Mm-hmm. So for me to to serve up an advertisement for Disney that might be geared towards a stay-at-home mom probably wouldn't be a great idea if I was sending it to somebody like Adam, right? So again, with our technology, we can find those people that would have that specific interest. We call it behavioral targeting, and we find them and we will put relevant ads in front of them. Usually works, not always, but that's typically, that's the way it typically works. So a little more complicated than that.
So are you using the social media sites for that, i.e. Facebook, where you can do the Facebook ads and everything like that, and really target specific people in specific categories and specific geographical areas for that matter?
Yes.
Are you doing stuff like that?
Yeah, we do utilize Facebook as a what we call a publisher partner. So, and we have our own content. We've developed our own sites as well. I thought it was very important for us to kind of own what we do, not just broker stuff to other people. So I have a small army of writers that write content for our own sites, which are typically centered around kind of the family, the young family, not always, but typically. But to answer your question about social media, absolutely. Yeah. Facebook especially has done a great job of honing in their analytics and sharing that with all of their partners. So I can get more insights from Facebook than I can from really just about anybody else about what a target market looks like, who my ads are served to, who's clicking on my ads, who's taking revenue producing actions on my ads. So that's why Facebook is so important these days. I mean, you know, we see it for kind of what it's worth right now for people griping about the president and things like that, but it's really a great channel for advertising too.
Good stuff, good stuff. Facebook and social media is so big now, it's just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And the cost is small as well. So yes, we have a question over here. Yes, ma'am.
How are you able to decide who your target market is actually going to be swayed to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really starts with the meetings with the client. And the client might be the advertiser or the brand themselves or the agency that represents them. I mean, the bigger the brand, it's typically with their agencies. And they usually give us kind of what they think their target market is. I'd say, you know, 6 times out of 10, we prove them wrong, or we might add to that a little bit. So, you know, it starts there with targeting, and then technology has become so smart that we really learn from that. So we will start placing ads and watch who clicks on those ads. And that's where the machines start to learn, and that's where the targeting process learns for where we put it out.
Yeah.
So how soon do you usually know and get the results from the time you have that audience that you think you want to target? You're sending out the ads, via Facebook or another option, and then about what's the turnaround time when you're like, okay, this isn't working, or we should switch it up, or what's usually the time?
That's a fantastic question. One I got from an agency today, which I think my rebuttal back to him was, look, every advertiser is different, right? The broader the advertiser, somebody like Disney, just about everybody in this room is interested in on some level. But if you have a smaller, niche type of product or service, it takes a longer, takes a longer time. Typically, it's not as much about time as it is about what we call impressions. So how much we put it out there, right? And that's how we watch it. But if you want to put a time factor on it, typically within 5 days, 3 to 5 days, we'll know kind of. Yeah, totally. Absolutely, yeah. How their interactions with the ad go. I mean, there's one thing to click on it. There's another thing to, go through pages on that particular website. Another interaction would be to actually buy something from that company.
Sure.
So we follow them through that whole, through the whole process. And then once we get the really good ones, the ones that are buying stuff, we want more of those. So that's who we target.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so how big of a part is Adam playing in the company so far? I mean, is his feet like getting wet, or is it like, how's it working?
Actually, Adam's feet did get wet on a little bit, yeah. And I'm happy to say I didn't have to fire him, which is good. So, actually, so with our content team, we utilize a lot of students, and we utilize a lot of stay-at-home moms who want to earn extra money to write articles for us. So if you think of blog content, it's usually fairly easy, 400 words or less kind of content that's pretty easily consumable, but kind of plays well with social media. Back to your point. So Adam was doing a lot of writing for us when we first started the company. He was pretty cheap. So.
Let me go here, then I'm going to go here. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
How do you determine your rate of success on some of a digital marketing campaign such as that? And then 2, how do you track, is there a way to track to convert impressions to sales?
Yes, and the questions really go hand in hand, quite honestly, because while many advertisers will say they're just out to build awareness about their brand, they all have a back-end goal of some type of return on ad spend. It's usually selling something or booking something, for instance. So one of your questions was, how do we take impressions to there? So we utilize technology. We pixel. It's technology called pixels. So we'll place pixels in key places on a website. And as you go through, it's almost like going through a turnstile, right? At the airport or subway or whatever. As you go through, we pick up on you. And as you take a revenue-producing action, we know about it. And we're going to drop a cookie on you at certain places to track you. Almost like a heat map. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So we know fairly quickly, what's being done. Now, that said, not all the advertisers give us all that data or let us do what we want to do to be successful, because they think that their business is proprietary and nobody should know about it. Okay, so that happens a lot. The first part of your question was what again?
Just rate of success, was it? Because I know I've been in marketing 15 years.
Yeah.
So back when I started, it was all about like couponing out the door, and we always said if we could get a 1 to 2% rate of return, we were successful at that coupon. So is there some kind of rate of success that you're trying to hit?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, every client is different, I think. Couponing has its own set of metrics. It's a little bit, kind of cheaper metric, if you will. And one of my companies was a company called Cool Savings, which had the first proprietary online coupon technology. It was that and Coupons Inc. We went away and pivoted and did something else. Coupons Inc. still does that, and they're the largest in the space now. So I know that business pretty well. But with that, it's all about coupon prints, not just prints, but redemptions. And they can track them by those little barcodes, those little weird barcodes. So they track them all the way back to who's redeeming those. And through technology, we can figure out which individual in this room not only printed that coupon, but went back and redeemed it for the good or service. But there's other instances too. If you talk about vacations, right? I mean, we know typically who's booking those vacations. The advertiser will share that data with us, or we will track it through ad tracking.
Stuff. We had a question over here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, in your opinion, how do you feel where the industry is going? Because a lot of people, or a lot of companies now are moving from traditional marketing to digital marketing. So they use stuff like search advertising and display advertising, which you do.
Yeah.
How do you feel like the job market's going to go or be in 15 years?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I'd say it's not moving, it's already moved to digital marketing. I mean, as I said, my first company in digital marketing was Classified Ventures, which was owned by 8 major newspaper companies. So if you think about traditional print advertising, I mean, you got the Tribune, you got the New York Times, you got the Washington Post. This was 20 years ago. They're all like, oh no, this internet thing's coming and it's going to kick our butt pretty quick. So that's why they started Classified Ventures, to kind of combat that. So it's happening. I'd say the prospects are fantastic. If you're going into marketing, if it's not a minor of some kind that you're looking at, it should be. It absolutely should be. And I think the world about it. I think I just read something that Mark Cuban wrote the other day about kind of machine learning when it comes to digital advertising. And he thinks that he thinks a little bit differently than most people. Most people think that the machines are going to make human beings obsolete because they're so smart. And he's like, not true. But they may not have to be tech geniuses that are getting degrees. They need to be people with good liberal arts degrees to understand what the needs of the consumers are, to tell those machines what they need to produce. So there's a couple things with advertising, right? There's people who write code and build the technology, and then there's liberal arts kind of bigger thinker guys guys and gals that will kind of direct where all that technology goes. Does that answer your question, hopefully?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask, what's your company's vision or your driving force? Like, what brings you, basically, what's your why? Why do you guys do what you guys do?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked. Thanks. So again, I think what's interesting and somewhat scary about digital advertising is people hear digital, they hear technology, and they think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to write code. I don't know if I can keep up with this. It's okay, right? Digital advertising over the last six or 7 years has really become about mathematicians and analysts and technology, and I think it's coming back now to where content is really important. And that's why I built this company. I worked at a company, my last company was all built around kind of machine learning and having a bunch of really smart math people in a room, figuring out, to the nth degree, what an impression meant for a company, to the point where advertisers got fed up because, yeah, they were getting cheap impressions served, but they weren't getting them in front of the right audiences. So I went through that. I saw the growth of that company. I ran sales for that company. And at the end of the day, it wasn't why I got into advertising. Why I got into advertising is really kind of the creative part of it, not the technology part. I wanted to be that guy if you've ever seen Mad Men, I wanted to be that guy who sits in the office with 5 other people and has the big ideas that drive sales for a company. And for every 5 that I lose, I win 1, and that's okay. It's pretty special, and it makes me feel good to wake up in the morning.
Good stuff, good stuff. Yes, sir. Here, then here.
Right now I'm using Mimic Pro, And I'm just wondering do you recommend any other simulations for social media marketing or digital marketing?
So one thing I'll tell you is I'm not a technologist. I'm a business guy, and that's okay, and that's a great question. And I can get you the answer to that, but I'm not going to give it to you. I'm on the front end dealing with the clients. I have a head of tech ops that worries about things you're worrying about right now, and that's a good thing to worry about. So there's my kind of partner in crime worries about that stuff. I worry about what our clients' needs are and how we're going to get there. So sorry I can't answer that question, but it's a great one, and I'll get you the answer.
Maybe we'll ask him after we talk. You get it. He'll connect you as well.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering if you advertise in your Facebook fan page that you say you have like writers that write content to that page, and if you do that, how many people you need to have in your fan page to make a profit of it?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow, it's a smart group. So first and foremost, we're writing content for our sites. We own 4 sites right now. Excuse me. That content is co-published in Facebook or in Pinterest. Those are really the 2 big social drivers for us and our audiences. So keep in mind most of my advertisers are folks you would find around the breakfast table and stuff like that. So my audience is typically families and younger moms and stuff like that, right? So we're writing content that they would be interested in. So you're talking about recipes, you're talking about 5 places to take your young family on a fall break, to what's the best car seat to buy. So that kind of content kind of lures them in, and then we get them with the advertising. What was the first part of that question?
If you advertise in the page, and for example, you have a client, and as you have many likes in Facebook, then you post a post of the client.
Yeah, so Facebook is an interesting strategy. I hired a person that does nothing but, I shouldn't say Facebook, I mean, we think about Facebook, social media in general. I hired a gal who works for us, and she's out of Indiana, of all places, who just manages basically our social business, or what we do socially, which isn't just making money, but it's really promoting our business and promoting causes as well and other things. We do a lot of co-publishing with other Facebook folks that are like-minded, right? So again, we're kind of bent on young families. You wouldn't believe how many publishers there are in this space. Mm-hmm. So we can work with them to dig into their audiences, and they work with us to dig into our audiences. So we kind of share audiences with them. It's a good, cheap way until you can build the big scale of, you're right, it takes hundreds of thousands of likes for you to, or followers really, to kind of move the needle. But the 2 that we're focusing on is really Pinterest and Facebook. Instagram, not so much yet, probably further down the road, but we feel that's where our audience is right now.
And Pinterest probably for that demographic, right? For that demographic that you're going after.
Completely. Yeah.
Interesting. I had a question. I was thinking of something when you answered the question about your business hat versus your technology. You're the CEO. You're the manager of this organization.
Sure.
And how is that different from starting it?
Yep.
You're out the gate and starting it. You have to do everything, but now you're more the manager. Tell us, give us a little picture of what that looks like for you then and now.
Yeah, sure. When I started the company, I had a good idea of who I was going to hire immediately. Again, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of great people work with me and for me, and I've worked for a lot of great people. So, I was the benefactor of a couple things. Having mentors that I could go to, I'm sure you're probably going to ask about that at some point. Having mentors that I could go to say, hey, how did you do this? Or how did you do that? And then having good, loyal people that have worked for me in the past that I knew would want to come work for me again. And that's really about just treating people the right way, right? I mentioned that our company is, we don't have a big home office. Everybody works out of either WeWork type scenarios or their home offices. And the people that work for me appreciate that, so they have a little bit more time in their hands to go for a run in the morning or go pick up the kids at 3:30 and then come back and get online and do things like that. So So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but really I just knew down in my heart who I was going to grab to come work for me, and we're not done building. I don't want to get it to a point where it's a huge company again. I've got to that point. I've built huge companies, and typically when I build it and it gets to a certain spot is when I go do something else, because it becomes less and less entrepreneurial and less fun. It feels more like a job. Again, with this company, I pick cool people, people I like, people I know would get after it, work hard, and we're just smarter than heck.
Nice, very nice. So 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. My first question is around the mentors and the advisors. I always tell the students here at COD, especially if they're interested in opening their own business, you got to surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who are also interested in what you're interested in, and who kind of want to go where you go, especially in this entrepreneurship space. If someone is not interested in entrepreneurship, they're going to say to you, why do you want to do that? So who are you surrounding yourself with, or who have you surrounded yourself with that have gotten you to where you are now?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Mentors are interesting because some people can be mentors to you and you don't even know it. And some people are, official mentors that you meet with on a regular basis over a cup of coffee or a lunch or, whatever it might be, right? When I say some official mentors, some people are mentors in not always a positive way. Some people you look at and you go, that's a person I don't want to be like, right? So I don't know if mentor is the right word, but I think it's important to recognize those people too that you probably don't want to be like, or you want to do differently, right? Listen, you're all going to leave here at some point soon, and you're going to go out in the world and have a job, and you're going to have some bosses or people you work next to, and you're going to go, that guy's a jerk, or that gal just doesn't get it, right? So remember that. Don't sit there and gripe about it, but just remember that person and know that you don't want to be like them, and you're going to be different. So that's a big part of it. So how did I find these mentors? Again, being in the business, I was fortunate enough to work with some really smart people who are very plentiful with their time, right? I mean, just like this, I don't have to be here this afternoon. I got 10 other things to do, but I really believe in paying it forward.
Sure. And
I think a lot of the people that I consider mentors believe in the same thing. We built a travel app a few years ago, and I was reaching out to people just to get advice. So it was a travel app, and I reached out to this chief marketing officer of Orbitz, and then the chief operating officer of Orbitz. And I knew somebody that they knew, so they took my call. And like, sure, I'll meet. I mean, it was a 15-minute cup of coffee in their office, but you know what? It was the best advice I got. I think you would be surprised at how many people are willing to pay it forward and help you out. As long as you're respectful of them and their time and just ask politely, just, hey, I got an idea. Do you got 10 minutes? I'll buy you a cup of coffee. There's not one person in America that doesn't go out for a cup of coffee or a smoothie or whatever it might be and is interested in that.
Sure.
Somebody's always willing to spend 10 minutes. Once you get that person, latch on to them, hang on to them. Let them know that you are very appreciative of their time, and call them back, right? I can't tell you how many people I've given advice to that have asked for my advice. We go out, we meet for lunch or something, and I have to follow up with them to find out how their business is going. So follow up with them and let them know that you appreciate it, and they'll meet with you and continue to help you out.
Good stuff, good stuff. And the last question kind of segues from that one there. So, and I ask every guest that we have this last question, of course. So it's, put yourself in our student shoes, and knowing then what you know now, what would you tell them to do, or even, advice you would give them in order to, as they're proceeding on entrepreneurship ventures or marketing ventures, or whatever they want to move, what path they want to move through entrepreneurial, what would you suggest? What would be your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. So with that advice, I'll tell you a little story. So I went to Eastern Illinois University, right? It's not Harvard. We call it the Harvard of the Midwest. Great little school. I was a C+ student. I was probably a D+ student until I met my wife, and she got me in the right major, and I was an A student in my major. Then I went to work for a company called Enterprise Rent-A-Car, right? And with all my friends that were graduating about the same time that I did, I was probably getting paid less than any of them. Within 3 years, I was making more than any of them, and this included a couple of attorneys. The reason I did it was a couple of things. I joined the right company, first of all. It was really hard work. I mean, really hard, but it's a very entrepreneurial type of company at that time because it wasn't the company you see at the Blackhawks games on the boards and stuff like that. It was a small company. I mean, we were the 5th largest rental car company in the world. We were building really fast, and I was fortunate enough to be there at a really entrepreneurial time. So the first thing, though, to answer your question is I had goals, right? And goals are key. The first question I ask anybody I interview, and I've interviewed literally hundreds of people, if not thousands, is tell me about your goals. And I don't want to hear the BS stuff that you learned in school of, okay, well, I want to do this and I want to become a manager in 5 years. I want real goals. And by the way, personal goals are cool too. I want to know that you want a boat or you want to drive a BMW. That's okay, because it tells me you're a hard worker. But I also want to know how you're going to get there. So again, going back to my enterprise days, I started out just like everybody else does there, washing cars and putting people in cars, delivering cars and stuff like that, to a point where I was opening up locations all throughout the western suburbs. I did it because I had goals. I know that I didn't want to be that guy washing cars 3 years from now, but I wanted to go up in the ranks at that company, and I wanted to make a certain amount of money. And then when I hit that, I readjusted my goals. So the next company I went on to, I said, okay, I got to $40,000. I want to make $75,000. When I got to 75, I readjusted. I want to make this, and I want to become a vice president. I'm tired of being a director. I want to be that guy in the room who gets to make the decisions. And then when I got that, I want to be the senior vice president who's leading a multinational team with huge advertisers. So have those goals, right? Don't ever, ever, ever lose track of them. Because I guarantee you're going to get asked the question in an interview when you get out of here, what are your goals? You walk in, I don't really know, I just want a good job. That doesn't cut it anymore, because everybody wants that. I want to hear what you want to do with your life. Again, both personally and professionally. So as long as you do that, and somebody asked the question earlier if it's still okay to wear a suit in an interview. Yeah, it's still okay to wear a suit in an interview. But I also think it's okay to call ahead and do some homework about that company and ask the recruiter, what's the dress code there? If it's a technology company and everybody's wearing jeans and t-shirts, dress a step nicer than them. Always. But always do your homework about that company. Don't ever walk in blind, because you know what? There's 5 people right behind you. You got to stand out somehow. The last thing I would say, get involved. The second question I ask after the goals is, tell me about what you did in high school and college. And it's really, really important to me. It's not important to every hiring manager, but it's really important to me to learn about that person's kind of, let's say life, but really what makes up their work ethic. So it's important to me to know that they had a job. It may be washing dishes. I washed dishes when I was in high school. Built a great work ethic. That's okay. I want to hear about that. I also want to hear about what you did in terms of extracurricular activities. So stuff like this, if you're on the track team, if you're in the band, things like that. I would rather have a C student that was in extracurricular activities than an A student that did absolutely nothing but go home and do homework. Because the C student that is part of something bigger tells me a couple things. Tells me that they can take direction as part of a bigger team, and they could probably give direction as part of a bigger team, because chances are they were provided some type of leadership opportunity on their sports team, or again on their debate team, or in a setting like this, right? So I'm always looking for somebody who is part of something just a little bit bigger.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, folks, let's give Greg a hand, folks. Once again, those of you here, thank you so much for coming as well. Those of you watching, thank you so much for participating in CODEC episode number 14, actually number 15. We'll be back soon with another episode shortly, and thank you for now. Take care.